We're back with another one here today, and I hope you can pull up a chair, maybe get yourself something to eat, and just sit down and watch this video. For anybody who's really struggling and learning how to cut hair, whether you're a beginner or advanced level, this is really going to help probably clear up something for you. And I've really just tried this to be my most thorough and comprehensive tutorial I've ever done. So sit right back in that chair right there, and let's get this thing started. Okay, we're gonna start by crawling through this. So I'm just gonna try to take you guys as if I didn't know a thing. I realize some of you guys are a lot more advanced in this and you may not need a video like this. That's fine, but this is for that dedicated learner. It's not an entertainment video, this is a learning video, and this is what we're gonna start with. So here I just have a regular Wahl Magic clip. Okay, basically all clippers with a lever are going to be the same. But as I push this lever down, you'll see that it starts to separate from the teeth, and that means that it's going to leave the hair longer after cut. So this would be like the long setting, and then once I push this all the way up, I return it back to closed. That's going to be the closest setting, meaning it's going to cut the hair the shortest. So I just want to head off any questions, because every video I do somebody asks, what's the difference between open and closed? And that's what it is. Now, a lot of you guys ask me about when I tell you to put the clipper on an angle. We're going to elaborate on more of this later in the video. However, when I'm telling you to go up straight, that's flat, that's fine. For when I'm putting in that open taper guideline or something like that, that's perfectly fine to do. However, the second you begin trying to blend out a line, I want you to come up on an angle. You could still keep this pressed up against the head, still keeping it flat, and that's going to become and that's still going to work for you. That's going to get that line out a little bit easier. Now, when it comes to keeping it flat, there's only really two things that you can do to make a bad haircut, okay? One is you don't understand the process. That's what we're going to get into today. Two is you're not holding the clipper flat. Okay, the manufacturer has created specified distances that are going to allow you to succeed. It's not necessary that you flick. You never need to flick. I can do this all day and it's not going to make any difference, okay? Flicking, especially when you're getting started, is going to be getting you in trouble. So don't do it. It's not necessary, okay? And what people are talking about when they're saying flicking, they're talking about the C motion. They're talking about scooping out away from the head in order to begin your blend. If you wanted to, you could begin flicking out to create your blend. However, it is not necessary, and I'll explain to you why. The distances that the manufacturer created are going to help you with that flicking out. Rather than flicking out, you're better off holding it flat up against the head. So just so you know that flat is not here, flat is not here, flat is right where the flattest part of the blade is. Now this clipper is the wedge. This has the wedge blade on it. You can see that you have this long piece of flat metal here, and that's right what you're going to press up against the scalp. Okay, obviously when you put a guard on, this being a number 5, flat is not here. You can tell, it becomes more apparent that this is where the manufacturer wants you to be, which creates this exact distance away from the head, which is 5/8 of an inch. Okay, and once you have a 1 1/2, which is a 3/16, which doesn't matter, don't get confused about measurements if you don't feel like you're good with fractions. Okay, but flat is obviously not here. You can see where the bend in the blade is. That means that flat is actually here. So the reason why you're going to hold it flat is because as we go through this process, the fade scale and everything, it's going to all start to make sense. But there is a guard for every distance up to a number 8, which will allow you to perfect just about any haircut that you could imagine and get any length that you need to in between. Okay, so without further ado, let's get this thing started. Okay, now you're gonna see me going through and I'm beginning to cut the top of the hair. I'm cutting the top of the hair with a number 2. And if you were to look over at this, you could see at the very top of my list, number 2 being the longest in this example. Now, the reason why we always go to number 2 and the reason why number 2 is so important is because, generally speaking, the width of most combs for when we do clipper over comb, that comb is going to become the barrier in between the hair and the scalp. It's very easy to blend from a number 2 because you can get combs that are pretty close to a number 2 in length if you were to push this comb and this right up against each other. So the back of this comb would be pretty close to a number 2, and in this case it would be a little bit shorter because it's a taper comb. However, if I was using a clipper comb, a number 2 would be pretty close. And if you were using this comb to do clipper over comb anyways, you'd probably run into trouble because it's not that wide. You'd find yourself coming off of the teeth, and very easily you could zeke somebody in the head. So I wouldn't recommend that. Now, after I've gone through and I've done the number 2 thoroughly over the top of the head, you're going to see that I will take some water and actually spray it on the top of his head, and then I'm going to comb it back up. How many times have you went home from a haircut and seen that there was little hair still sticking up? Okay, do yourself a favor. After your next haircut, go home, take a shower, comb all your hair back like this, turn the light on and look in the mirror. I guarantee you're going to see a bunch of little hairs sticking up, and it's nearly impossible to get them all, especially if you're going to use a magnetic or a clipper like this. It's very, very difficult to get them all. The rotary clipper, the Ostervolt that you see me using, is what's really going to help you get them all. It's going to be the most thorough and the easiest to use. However, once you've satisfied yourself that all that is done, we need to begin the skin line. Okay, depends what you want to do. This is where the consultation comes into effect, but you're going to ask your client, do you want a high skin fade? Do you want a low skin fade? Or do you want something in the middle? Okay, most clients who are getting a skin fade, they do know what they want. So a high skin fade would simply be a skin fade that takes place with the first line being put on the parietal ridge. So this is the parietal ridge right here, right where the comb leaves the hair. That's the parietal ridge, and it travels all the way around the whole head. No matter where you put a comb, right where it leaves the head, that's what you're going to find. Okay, and that's the parietal ridge. If you put a skin line on the parietal ridge or above it, it's going to be a high skin fade. Now, the reason is because that means that you only have from here and here to get this fade done into a number 2, or in some cases, whatever your client wants to wear, or maybe even into a longer length, which gives you even less space to get the blend done. So that's why it's so important that we're careful about asking what our clients want. We want to make sure that we ask them if they want a low skin fade, then we need to put that significantly lower to give ourselves more space, a stretch fade, a compressed fade, and there's all kinds of stuff that I can confuse you with, but I won't. However, let's just say that when we put in the skin line, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but if you notice what I did was I put it in on one side to about the occipital bone in the back, and then I jumped to the other side. It's very easy to get off track if you try to travel around the whole head and you come around this way, and then all of a sudden you find out that you were way above the temple here and you're way below the temple here. It's a lot easier to look before you cut that other side. How high did I go on the left side? When you go over to the right side, take a little bit, match it, go back and forth, and boom, once it's done, and you're good to go. Now, we're going to wipe out all the rest of the hair that remains, and right now you see me using a 5-0. So the 5-0 or the trimmer are going to leave the hair very similar in length. That's the lowest that we can cut without going to skin. And the reason is we want this 5-0 line in here because it is a very short jump from skin to the trimmer. Okay? Meaning that the length of the hair is very easy to transition from this to this because we're only moving up a small step. Now, if you noticed, as I move up the side of the head, I want to wipe out all that hair at the bottom. When I got my electric shaver towards the bottom, I want to wipe out all that hair. I want to push good and hard, keep that tension, keep that contact with the scalp. And as I get closer to the top of that line, about a ½ inch away from that line, I want to start reducing tension. And I want to start easing out because I want to create that blend. I can also come down with the grain in this spot. I can flick it a little bit. I can pepper it. I can use whatever technique I need to use. But it's so important that you wipe out all that hair at the bottom and you do not run it right into that line. Because if you run it into that line, the only thing you're going to be able to do to create the transition is to bring this whole thing higher. It's going to be a lot easier if you don't run it into that line, and you're going to have a nice, easy time with the next step. So creating that easy, smooth jump from 5-0 to skin is very simple if you do it in this step. Obviously, we got the line in there that's kind of like a guideline that tells us that we don't want to go all the way to it, and we know that we're working below it. So we know that if somehow we're working above it or on it, we know that we're making a mistake. That's what's so great about using this process, and this is just one of my favorite processes to use. And of course, this video also serves as sort of a shootout and a tutorial for those who are using Andis Masters or those who are using Wahl Seniors. And towards the end of the video, I'll tell you which one is my favorite, but this is kind of a shootout between the two. And you'll see that on the one side of the head, I use the Wahl Seniors, and on the other side of the head, I use the Andis Masters, which, as far as tutorial sake goes, it's not going to make any difference. Okay? Once you understand how to fade with one system and you understand how everything works, it'll be very easy for you to take that technique and move to another system and use it effectively with any kind of clipper company that you want. So, all right, well, we're gearing up here for our next step. Okay, so if the absolute shortest I can take the hair is skin, and the next step up is a trimmer, and the next step up is a closed taper. We talked about that earlier. This clipper is in the open position right now. I close it, and that's a closed taper. Okay, a closed taper is going to be, according to most manufacturers, about 3 zeros. Okay, 3 zeros is the closest we can get to 5 zeros, and these two are going to be a very small jump from where we did the trimmer to where we do the 3 zeros. However, what we're actually going to do, because I find it incredibly easy whenever I'm using a Wahl clipper, is I'm going to use the half attack. I've talked about this in many videos before, but I simply put the half on, I put it in the closed position, and we're actually going to create our burst guideline after we were done with our 5-0 line. So if this being our 5-0 line, we did skin, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to make our first guideline, and we're doing that with a half in the closed position. So I'll put a C. Okay, now the half in the closed position is very close to the open taper. Okay, the jump from open taper to a closed half is almost non-existent. They're almost the exact same distance. But all clippers cut better when they're in the closed position versus the open position. A lot of people like to do clipper over comb in the open position because it gives them a little bit of forgiveness. I, for one, don't, because I don't need forgiveness. I need speed. I need efficiency. So I always cut clipper over comb actually with my 5-0. But we're going to go into the next step, which is going to be an open taper. Now that open taper, we're working just below where we went. So right in here, we're working that open taper all the way up to nearly the top of that line. And gradually what we're going to do is, while we're working in this part, we have it all the way open. Okay, now I'm going to begin keeping this clipper angled as I move into this line, because this is the line that I'm actually trying to remove. These define my parameters. I know I'm working in between here and here. It's very simple for me. So now I come all the way almost up to the line with it open. I close it a little bit. I go just below that. Notice how I'm just below where I was before. I close it a little bit. I go just below that. Okay? And very soon you're going to close it all the way. You're going to come all the way down to the bottom, and you're going to notice that this entire line begins to disappear. And once that line disappears, it's very, very possible that you could have some residual still. That this part of the line was not able to be, you couldn't get it out with the closed taper. You tried everything. You stretched the skin. You went against the grain. You've maintained good contact to the scalp, and it's just not coming out. This is fine. This is a reality. This happens all the time. So it's a very simple thing to fix. And all we're going to do is we're going to, guess what? We're going to go back one step. So we'll go back to the trimmer, okay? we'll keep it on an angle. It is imperative that you keep it on an angle. So obviously this isn't a trimmer, but for example's sake, I'm going to keep it on an angle when I come into this, because if I take the trimmer and I hold it flat and I come straight up, it's very easy for me to create another harsh line, and then I don't have any space to work with. So if that's the case, make sure it's perfect before we move on to our next step. So moving on to our next step, we're actually going to take a number 1 open. Okay, it's just a 1 open, and what you're going to notice is this line is really going to start to dissipate, but we're going to repeat the exact same steps. So 1 open, I have it open all the way, I create my guideline, then I'm going to begin closing it and keeping it slightly angled, yet it is absolutely necessary that you keep it flat on the head. No flipping out is not necessary. Don't hold it like this, don't hold it like this, hold it flat on the head and on an angle. So the entire blade is touching the skin at the same time. However, only these top teeth are actually nudging into that area where we put our guideline. And once we've done that, you're going to start to see that this line here is going to begin to disappear. However, it will not disappear fully because we originally put that line in with the half guard closed. So we haven't gotten close enough to the scalp yet to get rid of this line, which means that we actually need to return back to the half. So I return back to the half. I'm going to begin with it open just to see what that does, and I'm very quickly going to close it, keeping this clipper on an angle, and you're going to notice that that's going to wipe out that line. The majority of that line is going to be gone. If it doesn't, it's very likely that it won't. Step back another step. Okay, I like to step back before we go forward, and people ask me all the time, Ed, how do I cut down on cleanup work? I find myself struggling with cleanup work. I make mistakes during the cleanup process. Can you show me a video of your cleanup process? I could show you a video of my cleanup process, but I don't have a large cleanup process because I am very thorough with my steps as I go through. So as I'm going through right now, you'll notice that I have the 1 open, which is a very short jump to the number 2. And from skin to the 1 open, I have made it clean as could be, and I just have a little bit of work to do left. Okay, so from the 1 open into the number 2, it's very easy that you might actually be able to just blend this straight from the 1 open to the number 2. But if we come over here and we look at our chart at the top, you'll see that I got the 1 open and the number 2, and there is actually an additional step in between there. So if we want, we could go back to the 1.5, and we can use that. We can do it open, we could do it closed, and we repeat the exact same steps. So simply 1.5 open all the way up to the top of the line, and then begin closing it as I move down, and you're going to notice that it's absolutely perfect. All this is going to be gone, and you're going to be left with a really clean skin fade from a skin to a number 2. Okay, and that's really going to be simple. So let's jump into this other side. I'm beginning with the Andis Master Fade, and the Andis Master Fade changes it just a little bit. Okay, the only difference with Andis is there's no 1.5, and you know, it's kind of interesting because the Andis has a very large throw. So the Andis Masters, we're going to start all our fades the exact same using our 5-0 and doing our skin and all that. We've already accomplished that on both sides. So I'm just starting with that open taper process. And instead of a 0.5 closed, we're just using the open taper. Now that's just this step right here. And that's actually how we're going to begin this blend. Now as I move up with it in the open position, I'm going to begin closing it and staying just below where I was, keeping it on a slight angle. Now you can see in the video how careful I am to always keep it on an angle when I'm working in these between steps, because I want to get rid of this line. That's my goal. But I don't want to create another line. And that's also my goal, and it's equally as important, if not more important, because it's very easy to get lost in these blends. So anyways, as I begin doing the exact same thing, notice how this all looks very familiar. You're going to repeat the same process. I'm stepping this down closed, and I'm staying just below where I was, and I'm keeping it on an angle. It's as simple as that. You can see the angles that I'm keeping it on. I'm trying to stay against the grain. And if you notice in the video, I'm holding a camera in my left hand instead of my normal comb or a brush. and that does make it a little more difficult on me because I would prefer to keep the skin still. If you notice, his skin is kind of bouncing all over the place, and that's why it's actually really nice to take your left hand and sort of stretch the skin so it's not moving around on you so much. However, as you start to get more confident and comfortable in what you do, you can make the adjustments for just about any situation, any scenario. Some people have really stretchy skin. Some people have really stiff skin that doesn't move so much. And you'll kind of understand what's happening as you gain some experience. You get those reps and you get more comfortable with what you're doing. As you see, I'm finishing out this blend. I have it all the way down. And if you notice on the Andis Masters, I'm not going to need as many steps because the Andis Masters goes from all the way closed, which is a 000, to a number 1 when it's fully open. So if you notice, when it comes down to the actual blending portion, as far as the Andis Masters is concerned, it can pretty much take a blend from the trimmer zone all the way up into the 1 without needing to make so many blade changes. Okay, now you've seen me make a lot of different blade changes when I was using the Wahl. It's very easy to make a blade change. It doesn't mean that the Wahl is any less effective. I'm just trying to get you guys to understand that during this process with the Andis Master Fade, you're not going to need as many clippers, guards, attachments. You're not going to have to change as often. And of course, returning to the trimmer if need be before we move on to the next step. If there is any residual here, I want you to return to that trimmer before you move on to the next step. Now, the next step up from the Andis is actually the 0.5, because the Andis does have a 0.5. However, it might not always be necessary because of the large throw that Andis has. You could easily skip this step and you can go straight to the number 1 open. And that's what I do here in this video. I skip the step, I go right to the number 1 open, and I'm going to go ahead and repeat the exact same process. If I had a number 1 on here, I have it in the open position. I'm working all the way up here, and I'm gradually closing it and dropping it lower and dropping it lower. And if there is any residual in this line that I'm trying to get rid of, I could simply go back to the half and I would get rid of it. However, I'm going to begin working in the back of the head now. And in the back of the head, I'm actually going to do a little combination. And this is kind of something interesting. This is kind of something interesting I've been working with for a little while lately. I've never really been a big fan of having 20 clippers on my station. I don't need 20 clippers. I understand why a lot of people use them because of sponsorships and because they need to show certain things. They need to grab a clipper that they never used and pretend that they did. And look, I get it, dude. I'm not knocking your hustle. But I will say that working with the Andis Master Fades and working with the Wahl Senior 5-star, I've kind of come up with something that I think probably a lot of people are using. But I noticed that if you do the open taper with the Andis, and you get to kind of skip those steps all the way up to a number 1. Remember, so we're jumping from our trimmer line to our number 1, and we're able to skip all those steps, which is kind of cool. Now, for whatever reason, the Andis can struggle in some of these steps, and it really seems to me that the Wahl does a better job of cleaning up just about all that hair. So after I've done the open and the closed with the Andis, I actually have found myself enjoying going to the Wahl afterwards as sort of a cleanup measure and just reworking that exact same step. So you did the open and you gradually keeping it flat, closing it down, and then once you've done that, you're going to go ahead, you're going to jump to that other clipper, and you're going to go to the Wahl, and you're going to keep it open to start with, see what you can pick up with it open, stay just below that line that you created, and gradually closing the clipper down, staying a little bit lower. And you're going to notice that it really knocks out a lot of that weight, and it really can help you to get that blend really nice. And it does clean up well after the Andis. So it's kind of nice to have both of them sometimes. It's kind of fun to use both of them. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. You don't have to have both. And if you guys were going to ask me what my favorite clipper is, I'm sure that some of you probably already know. Obviously, I really like Wahl as my favorite company. The Oster Fast Feeds have been my favorite clipper to use for a long time. But as we go forward, Oster's not really innovating anything anymore. They're not really putting out anything new that's kind of pushing the limits, at least in our area. They're kind of concerned about their other appliances and stuff like that. So look, I get it. You know, it's a company decision. They're not really caring about us anymore, which means that I kind of have to go forward with a different company that I like, you know, more. And I will tell you right now, if you get yourself a pair of Wahl 5-star Seniors with the corded version, there's nothing that those clippers can't do. They are one of the absolute best. You get yourself a nice set of guards. And then the best part about it is whenever you're dealing with Wahl, if you have an issue, you call Wahl and you tell them your issue, and it doesn't matter anything. I have sent stuff back that is so old and so beyond the warranty, and they were so gracious as to not even charge me a penny and send them back to me. And that gives me a whole lot of respect for that company, just because of the fact that they go that extra mile. They go above and beyond for people to keep them satisfied, and I certainly am satisfied. And for those of you guys who really don't know much about me, I own my own shop, I work in my own shop, but I also work in a barber school, and I just do that just one night a week. And I have control over what they get in their kit and all the tools that they use. So every single student, really because of me, uses a Wahl, and I pretty much pick all Wahl equipment. And part of the reason is the warranty process has been a lot easier to deal with than we have from other manufacturers. Now, there was a time where we used another manufacturer. I don't want to say anything, but we've had a lot of problems with that, and we had a lot of issues when it came time to send stuff back. And it was just a really frustrating thing because it made me look bad as an instructor when I suggested that, hey, I think this tool is better, which I did when it works right, but who cares if a tool outperforms another tool if it doesn't last? I'd rather have that tool that lasts a little bit longer. So if you guys want to check out my affiliate links, it helps me out. If you guys want to buy anything, I do get a small commission from it at no cost to you, but it helps the channel out. And if you like this channel and you like what I'm doing here and it's helping you learn, you know, it's really expensive to do all these YouTube videos. I have a lot of money invested in cameras, computers, hair equipment, and I invest a lot of time into this too. So if you guys want to throw me just a small donation, even as little as $1, I mean, look, anything helps, and it can go a long way to doing some of the stuff that I want to do on the channels. And also, since we just hit 20,000, I'm almost at 21,000. I just want to thank all you guys so much and just tell you that I just can't believe that we're getting so big on this channel and that so many things are happening. It's hard for me to respond to every single comment I get now, which is a good thing, but it's also like, you know, I feel like I'm falling behind. I can't keep up with all this on my own. But I just want to thank all of you guys who took the time to reach out and who subscribed and who like all my videos and who share, because literally every single thing that you do along those lines has helped this channel grow and it's helped it become what it is. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, which is why I'm going to give away this pair of Wahl Magic Clips. It has the wedge blade on it. I'm going to clean this thing up. I'm going to charge it up, and I'm going to send it out to one of you guys. So all you have to do to win this one is like and share and comment this exact video. Like this video, share this video, comment this video. If you do this, I will go ahead and I will pick somebody from the list of comments. I'll make sure that you liked it. I'll make sure that you shared it. And as long as you've done all those 3 things, you will be entered in this to win it. Okay, so I'm going to select somebody at random from that list, and I will announce the winner probably next Tuesday night. In case anything changes, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button because I will be doing another couple videos between now and then. So good luck to whoever is going to win this magic clip. I really haven't used it that much. It's mostly sat in the drawer. I've used it at home on a handful of occasions, but I prefer the corded version. However, there's nothing wrong with it, and these are a great option when you need to travel. So again, thank you guys for all the love. Thank you for all the support, and thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys in my next video. I'm out.